Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's great to have you all with us today. Thank you for taking the time to join. I'm Neve Gallagher, the Programme Director for Anti-London and Boston, where we bring together the animal health ecosystem to explore innovation across the value chain. I'm very excited to introduce Cal Lai, founder of AskVet, who will be leading our session today. AI is reshaping animal health. Here's how. AskVet is a leading digital veterinary platform using AI and data to support pet owners and veterinary teams across both companion and livestock animal health. We will be keeping this session interactive. You should see a couple of polls pop out throughout the session, and there'll be a Q&A at the end. So your participation is very much encouraged. Cal, it's great to have you with us, and I'm really looking forward to the session. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Dee. Really appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you have a chance to join us this morning. I'm Cal Lai. I'm founder and CEO of AskVet. I'm going to play a really quick video for you. It's going to really show you the future, I believe, of where AI is going to really play a vital role in animal health. AskVet is the leading company in AI and data in the animal health industry. That's all we do. We've been working on AI, and particularly agentic AI, since 2017. So we've been at this about 9 years. We have the largest data set that's the ideal training materials for large language model, which is we have more than 3 million conversations that have been recorded in our system between our veterinary professionals, primary DVMs, and pet parents and or livestock producers. So over the 12 years that we've been in business, we've collected over 3 million recorded conversations. And from that, we've since 2020 have built an agentic AI tool. Her name is VERA. That's the name of our AI platform. VERA is an acronym that stands for Veterinary Engagement and Relationship Agent. Within the next 12 months or so, what I'm going to show you in a minute will be what we call VERA 2.0, her ability to speak to you in a human form and engage in a real live conversation, much like a human being will. We believe that the key now is AI is going to change the user experience for everyone. It's a transformational switch, much like the internet was. So AI will create brand new models. One of the new models it's going to create is it is going to become the new user experience, supplanting most of what we see today in the old style of navigation on a website or on an app where the user, the least knowledgeable person, gets to drive that transaction. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to VERA. This is our metahuman veterinary agent.
Hi, I'm VERA, the world's only super intelligent AI veterinary agent. As AI becomes the new user experience, I guide veterinary teams and pet parents through personalized healthcare management. I serve as the interface between people, data, and veterinary care by interpreting needs, remembering context, and delivering the right insights at the right time. I'm here to transform how we learn, engage, and care for animals, turning complexity into clarity and insight into action. And now, please welcome the person behind my creation, Cal Lai, founder and CEO of AskVet and AskVera.ai. Cal is a technology entrepreneur focused on applying artificial intelligence to the veterinary industry, leading the development of VERA to expand access to veterinary expertise and transform how veterinary care is delivered at scale. Today, he'll share how AI is shaping the future of veterinary medicine. Please welcome Cal Lai.
So there you see, that's our 2.0 version of VERA. Today, VERA can actually pop up the QR code. There it is. Please scan that QR code. That'll put VERA on your phone. Now, this is the text version of VERA, what we call VERA 1.0. So you'll be able to engage with her. She can have a discussion, and a fairly deep technical one if you want, or a consumer-oriented one for all species of animals, with the exception of zoo animals. She speaks 60 languages. So if you speak another language, just start to communicate with her in your language, and she'll respond in that language. And this will put VERA on your phone. You can also access it through a website, which will flash up the URL in a second. So this will put VERA on your mobile device. So what you just saw was VERA 2.0. Within the matter of maybe end of this year, early next year, the conversation you're going to be having now on your phone with Vera in a text format, you will be able to have on a Zoom, on a conference call, on a telephone, whatever way you want to have it, because that meta-human that you saw will actually be able to hear you, speak with you, and engage in a real conversation, much like you would with a human being. And as I said, Vera is the world's most intelligent and highly trained veterinary agent, trained like a veterinarian several times over. So she's critical in the industry. We feel that she has, and this is a generic version of Vera, every instance of Vera that we create for our partners are customized to their specific applications and needs. So what we do is we ingest all of their data, the relevant data. Vera becomes expert in their data. She's an expert on veterinary medical knowledge, advice, triage. She can integrate her knowledge, her medical knowledge, with your product knowledge to be a very expert worker in customer care, in sales, consultation. She also manages back-end processes. We'll talk in a minute about what she's capable of doing. Every segment of the industry utilizes Vera, whether that's food, pharma, veterinary clinics, livestock producers. Some retailers utilize Vera directly to engage their pet parents. So we are an enterprise business. Our customers are all enterprises, and they deploy the Vera platform to their customers. So quick with that background in mind, so that's understanding the capabilities of what our platform can do. We're going to talk about how Vera and other agents like Vera in various industries will really change industries in fundamental ways. So we're going to talk a little bit about that shift, how the UX paradigm, the user experience paradigm really changes with these intelligent agents, how intelligence really becomes a new interface. We'll get into that, and that's a really key concept to understand. AI collapses the gap between intent and execution. I really believe that you'll see dashboards, mobile apps, websites all diminish in their value as intelligent agents become the new user experience in any industry. We're going to talk a little bit about what agentic AI is a term that it's the hot term for the last 12 months. I'm sure you all have some familiarity with it. We'll dive a little more deeply into it. I really want to talk through about what kind of business value that tools like Vera can unlock. And again, a summary of why AI is the new user experience in any major industry. And Vera is the new user experience for animal health. I'm going to probably set aside about 20, 25 minutes for questions and answers. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a quick guide on how you can think through an implementation of a highly skilled agent in your business. So with that, can we pop up the first poll, please? We're going to have a couple of polls through our conversation today. I'd love you to participate and answer the polls. So how critical, and you can see it on the screen here, is AI to your company's future? All right. So you can see roughly 90% of people think that it's either critical or important. And yes, there's some of you who don't think it's important at all or think it's a little bit important. And again, this distribution sort of makes sense to us. And I think as more time passes and people start to really see really valuable use cases appear, the criticality bucket will increase in its importance. I think people will start to see, as other people use it, how they use it to gain critical competitive advantage. And that's going to make it critical on everybody's list because there'll be demonstrable advantage to the use of tools of this kind throughout your business. So what's the major industry shift? So we're going to talk about the big thing that AI allows us to do. It allows for a more connected, ongoing relationship rather than a transaction. And if you think about most industries, veterinary is no different. The veterinary industry is no different. Everything today is about transactions rather than about relationships. So the way we talk about it in animal health care is we say the shift is really from occasional visits to connected care. One other way to say it is from the treatment room to the living room or to the farm, right? So we're really trying to create, using AI, a model where instead of there being intermittent care, it's continuous care. And you can see a lot of benefits of that continuous care. One, we all know that both people and animals live longer, healthier lives if we put them on a wellness journey rather than just fix the problems that appear. So the whole effort should be to keep people and animals well and happy. So on the companion animal side, you can see AI sitting quietly in the background, turning wearables and home test devices into simple telemetries of data from which personalized one-on-one medical care plans can be created. You can see earlier notifications and flags for potential problems may be coming. So a wearable might tell you something like heart rate's changed, mobility has lessened over the last several days, there's the presence of a fever. There are lots of things that telemetry devices will be able to do. Those now present themselves in the form of a stream of data, and an agent like VERA can sit in between that data, can gather that data, can create insights from that data, and create customized one-on-one medical care plans for that particular animal. So really, if you think about what we're trying to do, we're trying to use intelligent agents and the agentic agents that can now take action, not just answer questions, to really drive a much more personalized one-on-one care plan based on specific data that's being fed into that particular bot, right? So that particular agent. So that's what's critical, the ability to create a connected care, a one-on-one personalized medicine path, as well as a continuous health and wellness journey rather than an intermittent, reactive injury and illness journey. The same would be true on livestock. More and more livestock are being fitted with wearable devices of all kinds that deliver all kinds of telemetries. Farms are being outfitted with cameras and microphones to be able to hear sounds and interpret those sounds and take actions based on what it hears and sees. So precision livestock farming is really going to benefit significantly from the presence of AI. Why? Because we all know that these telemetries create a tremendous amount of data, but then so what? What do you do with all that data? So it's critical that we understand that data now becomes actionable, because now there's an intelligence that's analyzing that data, that's creating insights from that data, and creating a plan of action to either prevent problems or find problems that are before they actually occur, just before they occur, and ultimately create plans for people, for animals to live much longer and healthier with customized wellness plans. And really, the UX paradigm has shifted too, right? So if you think about the user experience right now, how does user experience work? So we all get on a website, we get in an app, and we want to find something. We want to gain some information. We want to purchase a product. We do it with some intent in mind. So what happens? We search, we filter, we try to click through various menus. We try to, interpret the data that's there. And then now we have some data, we might say, okay, well, I need to do this. So you step off and do whatever you do. In this world, the software is reactive. You, the user, are driving your own experience. And in many ways, we're the least capable people of driving our own experiences. Why? Because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know the architecture of how these sites and these applications are set up. So many of you find an experience where you say, I couldn't find that. I didn't quite know how to make that work. Well, that's because you're the least person able to drive your experience through this vast database of knowledge that's behind this website or this app. So what AI allows us to do is flip that on its head. It takes a skilled agent, an intelligent agent that's interfacing with me, communicating with me, having a conversation with me, much like you can have with VERA on your phone. Now that you've downloaded that QR code, VERA can ask you questions. She has context and memory. She remembers who you are. She remembers everything that was said to her and remembers everything about you. Think of it in the background. She's building a profile about you. And now she can push to you all the data that you're looking for. So in the first case, where we are navigating our own user experience, it's a pull example. In this, what we're talking about in the future is a push example, where the intelligence that's sitting on top of all this wealth of information can push to you the information that you find most relevant and valuable, because it knows what you're looking for based on the conversations, the questions you ask, and interactions that you have. So it's really taking this model of the user driving the experience to the source of intelligence behind all this data, driving your experience in a way that it knows you want. That's a major shift in the paradigm of how user experiences appear in all digital. You can think about it in the simplest way. Most of you have been using Google probably for a couple of decades. And if you think about Google for a minute, it's a search engine. Why was Google valuable and probably at one point the most valued company in history? Because it took this vast base of knowledge called the internet and it allowed you to access what was there through a mechanism called search. So in the early days of Google, when you searched, you often got very much what you wanted because it was organically based. Their algorithms knew what you probably were looking for and would present you with that information. Well, today they've kind of lost their balance between paid search and organic search. So now when you do a search, you also often find a couple of pages of what appears to be ad, not exactly what you want. And yes, you may get to what you want, but you'd have to scroll down and you have to search a little bit. It's become a very clumsy user experience and not a very satisfying one, very different from the user experience of 20 years ago. And I think that's the decline of Google is a very strong example of how the user experience is changing. Look at ChatGPT. Many, many more people are switching over to ChatGPT to get answers to questions, or Claude, or Copilot, or Google, whatever it is your tool of choice. But those engines are what we call answer engines, not search engines. In the paradigm of a search engine, you're given information from which you can extract data, extract what you want, maybe if you got to the right thing, and come to your own conclusions. In the world of AI, where that intelligence guides your experience, it knows what you're looking for, it anticipates what your needs are, and it pushes to you all the things that you find of value, giving you answers to questions. And remember, we live in a world where we're all very busy, and some of us are lazy, and we don't want to have to work for answers. Google makes you work for an answer because it provides you with information from which you can glean an answer. ChatGPT gives you an answer. Now, it may not always be the right answer, but its ability to provide you with a right and relevant answer is increasing dramatically every day. So you do have to understand this key paradigm shift because it's fundamental to the value of what AI is creating in our industries. So when I started in college, I took computer programming. I was programming machine. I worked in machine language, and most of you did. If you started computers in the time period that I did, you were using an IBM 360, and you had to punch cards and create those kinds of promotions. Very, very kind of crude way of doing things. Well, so the way we interface with machines have changed over time, right? Then came the GUI, the graphical user experience, where you click and navigate. Then mobile came along. That was Steve Jobs' brilliant insight to switch, the mobile from a phone to a mobile internet device. So, Nokia was the king of the cellular business. What they missed was a dramatic shift from talking on the phone, having a mobile phone, to mobile internet, having access to this vast data behind the internet through a mobile device. And that's the reason that the iPhone flipped the value proposition, because the user experience changed. Again, I'm pointing out all these points in time where the technology changes the user experience. Cloud management did the same thing. Now that we all have things up in the cloud, the ability to access what we have through a dashboard, see the operation of our cloud-based systems, it's all done through a dashboard. AI is the next form of user experience, the next form of communicating with the machine. It's intelligence guided, so that you're no longer subject to that problem of you don't know what you don't know, because the intelligence understands you, listens to you, queries you, and says, I see what this person is looking for, and let me present them with the information that I know is exactly what they're looking for. So these interfaces have improved, and if you think about them, they've become much closer to natural language. When I first started programming, we did it through punch cards. That was machine language. That was no human language. Today, and where AI is getting us is you'll be able to very quickly, just by using words, program, be able to get answers to questions, be able to build sophisticated reports and charts, all using your voice. Because now AI allows us to use our natural language to essentially communicate with and program a machine. So really, we think about AI for a second, it really collapses the gap between intention and execution. So let me give you a real live example. So let's say that, and I was at the CASACO event in London, which was a fabulous event. It was our third time there. And this year, like in past years, we were a sponsor. So we have 3 days there, and I usually have 5 or 6 dinners that I take clients, potential clients too. And I love to do elaborate dinners. I'm a foodie, so I love to take people to dinners that I know they'll enjoy. And of course, we end up talking about business, but for the most part, it's a social event. I put a lot of effort into finding a location or locations, restaurants nearby, getting the food right, because I'm particular about the food. I want 4.5-star ratings or Michelin star ratings, whatever I do. I need to communicate with my clients who I'm inviting. I need to make reservations. I often need to arrange transportation. All of this today, we use the internet. I go to something like the Michelin Guide. I go to Yelp. I go to Google and I search. The last one was in the St. Paul area of London. So I searched the St. Paul area, an area I don't know very well. We did not spend much time in. So I searched it. I found the restaurants that qualify. I found the ones that had available times based on, the meetings and dinners that I had planned. I then called, I had my assistant call all of these restaurants, make reservations. She would then told the clients when they were coming and what their time was, where to meet us. She handled all the logistics. So there we used the computer to essentially provide us with information, and we had to execute, right? We had to search. We had to then book a reservation. So there's an intent, which is I want to book 5 nice dinners of this quality, of this caliber, in this location with people that are important to me. And we then use the internet to provide us with the context information to do that. But we, the humans, had to actually make all those connections. We had to call the restaurant. So that's our intent, was to set up 5 nice dinners. But the execution, what we had to get involved with agentic AI, and it's important to understand this concept, these agents can not just provide answers, but they can take actions because they can connect to databases. So now they can connect to the Yelp database and look at all the data and say, oh, I see, given Cal's criteria that he prescribed in his prompts, here's the kinds of restaurants, here's the kinds of cuisine he wants, here's the ones that are in the rating. I'm going to pick these for him. And then I'm going to reach out again through the agentic capability through OpenTable. And I'm going to book reservations at every one of these restaurants. I'm going to confirm them, and I'm going to get Cal the confirmation of the time. I'm going to send emails out to all of the people he's inviting. So now what AI has done is it's taken my intent, book 5 nice dinners, make sure they're of the quality and caliber that I like, communicate with the people who are going to be there, and finalize all the logistics. I gave it that intent and it executes it. So no longer do I have to do the searching or my chief of staff do the searching and book the reservations. AI allows us to collapse that gap between what we want to do and getting it done. And that's a critical thing to understand in the value of what AI really creates. I really believe that at some point in the very near future, dashboards, maybe even websites will disappear, or they'll become far less relevant to our experience. So if you listen to people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, some of the leading thinkers in the space, they all believe that ultimately our voice and maybe even our thoughts will be what drives a lot of activity rather than punching a keyboard or sitting and poking at icons on a screen. So, if you think about the traditional workflow, you log in, you do something, you pull reports, you interpret some charts, you make some decisions, and you say, okay, now I'm going to go and execute these decisions. As I said, with an agentic agent now, that intent can be translated immediately into doing it rather than by getting information and doing it yourself. So I think a lot of these experts believe that what will end up happening is we'll wear glasses, which is why they're all focused on some form of glassware where, your lenses can become a screen. I know that there are people working on contact lenses that we'd wear that could become screens. There are some people that are starting to work on thought patterns where we don't have to even speak. We can think. We have a little chip installed somewhere just under our skin, and we think a thought, and now suddenly the AI would pick up on that and start to talk to us, or display the answers on our screen or on our glasses or on our contact lenses. So again, I think the whole user experience over the next 10, 15 years will change dramatically. Think about the experience of doing business before the internet, and think about all the monumental changes and the ways things are different today, fundamental ways that we don't even think about anymore. That same shift is going to happen as these AI agents become incredibly powerful representatives of our intent and what we want to do, are able to, within certain confines and boundaries. And again, you can bound it by saying, give me recommendations first, let me approve them, and then act. Or you can just say, I trust you, you've done this before, you know what my intents are, just do it. So the entire engagement will change. So I think you have to really start thinking about how people are going to access this wealth of data that you have. As organizations, 20 years ago, we had a problem of, we knew data was the new oil, but not a lot of us had data in a usable format. Today, I think we have too much data. We're all awash in data. So now the question is, now you have all this data, what do you do with it? How do you make that relevant? How do you extract key insights from that data? And how do you monetize the value of the data you've created? Using AI, that's a much simpler task than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And that task will become even simpler. So it's now going to be a matter of the so what. What do we do with this data? What does this data mean to any individual user? Because through using AI, we can customize the value of that data for that particular user. That's the whole key. Personalized, customized interpretation and application of data to an individual user, because we know who you are, we know what you're interested in, and we know what you want to hear and learn. So I think you're going to have to think about the way we interface with technology and machines very, very differently in the next few years. So we talked a little bit about the agentic structure. So I don't know how many of you know what that really means. And I'm going to put it in really simple terms. Bots, chatbots, chat agents were able to give you answers. And we've had pretty poor ones until, the last couple of years where generative AI has really made these bots much more intelligent and much more capable of, listening to you, knowing what you want, and providing you with the outcomes that you're looking for. Well, that's being taken a step further, because now all of these agentic agents, and VERA is a fully agentic agent, has been for the last year and a half since really agentic AI came out. She not only can answer questions, but she can take actions. Why? Because we can take her agentic layer and connect it using APIs to anything that's digital, whether that's a CRM or an ERP, an order management system, an email system, an analytics package, a payments engine, and now she can interact with that. So an example of how some of our partners use VERA, they put VERA in front of a customer care organization. They may get one of our partners gets 10,000 inquiries every day on their customer care team. They sell products. So they're a distributor. They sell products. So many of their questions relate to order entry questions. Here's my order number. I ordered something 6 weeks ago. I've seen parts of it. I knew the rest was going to come later, but I haven't seen it. Where is it? Or I ordered something. I got it. It's not the right quantity. So what do people do today? They call a line and they speak to a customer care agent. So we all know that experience. Never a good one, right? We wait unnecessarily and someone comes and helps us. And, that often is a good experience, but it took time and we had to wait around for it. With an agentic layer, VERA sits in front of the organization. She ingested all of the order entry, all of the management, all of the inventory system, everything in the back end. So she can answer these questions about where's my order? Why did I only get 3? I ordered 2. She can resolve those. She can answer those because her intelligence is now connected to all of their back end systems. That's the value of agentic AI. So in that example, she can eliminate somewhere between 65 and 70% of the human involved cases by handling them all by herself, all using AI. That's how people are using agentic agents in an organization to essentially save cost, drive a better user experience, and ultimately reduce the burden of fairly mundane and fairly ordinary questions that get asked over and over and over again. So think of these agentic agents with their capabilities to connect to any APIs and any publicly available API or any private one that you have access to. They can now connect into any database that you have, making agents like VERA the center of all of the data you have. So imagine being able to upload all the data you have into one data lake. You don't have to worry about even sorting that or filtering that or creating a taxonomy or ontology on top of all that. All you need to do is put it there, put an agentic agent on top of it, and then people can utilize their natural language and search that vast treasure trove of data because the agentic layer knows what they want, understands their intent, executes their intent and goes into that vast lake of data using her agentic capabilities and pulls the relevant data out and presents it to the user. That's the future of how these kinds of agents will be used, not just in animal health, but throughout every industry that we know today. So let's talk about the business value that's unlocked here. These are several examples, certainly not an exhaustive list by any means. Think about being able to create condition-based subscriptions. So let's say that you're a pet parent and you're now where your dog was diagnosed with diabetes. So now you can engage an agent that will help you, bring you information, customize a care plan for your particular dog with its comorbidities, its age, its breed, because it understands all the medical implications of age and breed, understands how that interacts with various medical conditions, with pharmaceuticals. And now you can create a subscription model. So for $5 a month, $10 a month, we'll give a wellness plan for your particular dog to make sure that that dog is on the right exercise program, pharmaceutical regimen, nutrition regimen. If you apply a wearable, we can now track some of the data that would give us more information in real time to be able to adjust their care plan. Creating a subscription-based wellness model like that changes the industry from being reactive, injury and illness, to proactive wellness management, all utilizing data and AI to drive the right solutions for a particular problem. Another way you can unlock business value with the utilization of this data is outcome-based agreements. You can have contracts based on the amount of dollars that you're able to save, and all kinds of different rates you can create. So you can work with your partners to, instead of getting paid to do something, get paid to create outcomes. And you can utilize these agentic agents to essentially deliver those outcomes that are desired by your customer, right? That's another way to think about how you can change the way you make money based on these AI agents. And there's another third big, broad use case sets is enterprise efficiency. Some people and many organizations will do both, and I'd argue that over time we'll all do all of it, where we'd be able to essentially generate revenue through these agentic agents. In some cases, we can save cost. I gave you an example of how VERA sits in front of a custom care organization and handles a lot of very mundane order entry type questions. That saves a lot of people time, saves them a lot of cost, and makes a much more efficient, better user experience because the user doesn't have to wait. That call is answered instantly. They get what they need. The system now automatically puts it back into the system, whatever change was made, and no human was involved in that process. So imagine all of these agentic agents at work in an organization, things like for a pharma company, a pharmacovigilance management process. If you're a producer of livestock, you might have a biosecurity process that an agentic agent manages. All of these kind of enterprise efficiencies that not only save you money, but ultimately create a better experience for your customers. So if AI is the new user experience, and VERA is the new user experience for animal health, then AI is not optional anymore, right? It's a must-have. So whoever operationalizes the AI UX first gains a real competitive advantage in terms of value, in terms of customer engagement, in terms of customer satisfaction, retention, ability to capture a greater market share because of this advantage, and ultimately lower pricing because you may be able to do some things behind the scenes at a lower cost because you use agentic agents. If you don't take advantage of VERA in the animal health world as the new user experience, you will lose. And that's true in every industry. And there are VERAs that are appearing in every industry, financial services, legal, automotive, construction, you name it. And these agents are appearing everywhere. And those companies that utilize these features now will create a better experience at a much lower cost in a much more personalized, customized way that creates the gaining of market share and also retention. They will have a strong competitive advantage. So remember, you want to build solutions that are designed for outcomes. So today we design websites and apps for features. You ultimately want to design them for user outcomes. You want to create architecture that prioritizes API first, Why? Because you now want these agentic agents to hook on to all the stuff that the technology you've created and the data that results from that technology, because that will now power the answers that these agentic agents will be able to provide. These agents, if you build them the right way, all have memory and personalization capabilities. They have context. They remember who you are. They can now personalize answers based on what they know about you, that's what's valuable to the user. Right? The user wants what they want, personalized for them. And an agentic agent is the best way that they can get that, rather than, as I said earlier, having them drive that experience themselves. This embeds explainability and trust. It makes data, it makes information, it makes outcomes, it makes recommendations queryable. So now you can ask questions. One of our partners, they do lab work. They submit labs back to a user, often a veterinarian, not always. And sometimes veterinarians have questions about the lab result that comes back. What do they do now? They call. And they have to talk to somebody to get a trained professional about a question they may have about a particular lab. That takes time, that costs money. A better way to do that is when you send them the lab report, you say, have any questions about the lab report? Click here and talk to Vera. Vera then, because she's ingested this lab report, ingested all the science and data that this company has behind the scenes, can intelligently talk through and answer the questions they have about that particular lab. So again, these AI agents make data throughout your organization queryable by people both outside your organization as well as inside your organization. And ultimately, when you build these agents, you really want to define what your KPIs are. You want to know what your time-based outcomes are. Ultimately, you want to know what your return on investment is for all of these agents. All right. With that, I think there's another poll. We're going to flash it before I get into Q&A. If you can flash that poll up, please. Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing the poll. Oh, there it is. If your company is planning to implement an AI solution, what is the solution focused on? They're basically two, right? Internal, external. So roughly, this is very consistent with the data that we see, that basically 2/3 of the companies are starting with internal applications as opposed to externally facing ones. Why is that? That's obvious, right? Because there's greater risk, particularly brand reputational risk, by deploying these agents externally. So everyone starts by testing them in an internal environment. I would argue that over time, the next couple of years, they'll be more in balance, and longer term, you'll see external engagement being 3/4 of the entire answer. Yes, we'll all use them internally, but the real value will come in the way we engage and attract new customers. So in this second part of the poll, it looks like 90% of you are planning to implement an AI solution, which is actually slightly higher than I would have expected. If we had done this poll a year ago, I'd say that's probably 60-40, yes to no. Today, it's 90-10, and I'll be willing to do it. If we do this next year, it'll be 95-5, or maybe even more skewed. All right, with that, I'd like to open up the floor for questions.
Hi, Cal. I actually have a question based on your presentation. Thank you so much for all of the details. If you were ingesting my data, what kind of measures would you take to make sure that it's secure?
So that's a great question, one we always get. So as I said earlier, there are no two versions of VERA in the world that are alike, because they're always an integration of our data and our partners' data. So every one of our partners has a secure, unique silo where and a very hardened silo where our data and our technology and their data all present the core of a solution. And some of our partners, because they have very different use cases, have multiple versions of VERA. So I think the most we have is someone has 5 versions of VERA in operation in their organization. And everyone is trained differently because they have different points of view. So every one of these silos are completely secure, both directions. We take no data from outside of the internet. One of the biggest reasons that there is inaccurate, wrong, confusing data is if you think about the large language models, their source of data is internet at large. One, there's a lot of bad data out there. Two, there's a lot of data out there and a lot of it can be conflicting. So the general AI agents get confused when it's presented with too much data. And often the term we use is hallucinate, right? Everybody uses that term. It can hallucinate because it's confused by the data, too much data or bad data. So what we ensure is by making sure that all of the data that's in these silos we put there, we and our partners put there, we take no extraneous data. All of that data is curated on the way in. So we ensure that all the data is accurate, and we're constantly testing that because we put it there, we and our partners put it there. And on the other side, none of that data that we have in a secure silo goes outside of that silo, because we obviously don't want our proprietary data or our partner's proprietary data, available to the internet at large. So there's significant security capability behind every one of these silos. All of these silos can be HIPAA compliant. They're GDPR compliant. We can be compliant with any measure and metric that you want, and we of course, adhere to all of the standard and then some security measures to make sure that all the data in these silos and stacks are completely secure.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Amin's posted a question in the chat, which is kind of a follow-up to my previous one. Is the information given to VERA by users used to train the model as well?
Yes. The model's constantly being retrained, so she's constantly learning along the way. So I would argue that I think what we're starting to see is the very beginnings of agentic agents and the native intelligence based on the data that they currently have. I think over time, what you're going to see is these agents become more and more powerful in their particular area of expertise because they're going to be learning more. And by the way, that's the biggest advantage to doing something early, because if you can capture people's use early, you now are capturing them as their profiles as users. More importantly, you're capturing the data they're putting into the system. So the reason you want to be early in this whole AI push is to be able to capture the most data quickest, because then your agentic agents will be the most intelligent because they get more sophisticated as they learn and as they hear more sessions. We know, because as I mentioned earlier, VERA bases her information on 3 million existing sessions. She's gaining tens of thousands of questions every day. So she's continually getting smarter. So she's been in operation, as I said, since we started and we built her in 2020. She got into full production in 2023 when OpenAI became publicly available. She's been gaining and learning since that time. So we have a 3-year head start on engaging the animal health world and driving new current data that's continuously refreshing and re-educating VERA. So she's getting smarter and smarter by the day.
Amazing. I suppose it's almost like people in that sense, but on a crazy level.
Yeah.
We have a question from Bernard who asks, what are the critical prerequisites for an organization in order for AI implementation to succeed? For context, they're a generic manufacturer.
Yep. And by the way, I think you'll have the capability to schedule one-on-one with me, so I can walk any of you through your specific. I can be a thought partner. I'm willing to spend time with anyone on this webinar, talk through, how you can approach this in the beginning. So please use that calendaring tool to schedule a time with me. Happy to customize that answer for any of you. In general, I think the way to look at it is you really have to understand what problems are you trying to solve and what ultimate intent do you have, whether that's in the customer care environment, whether that's to engage a customer at a point of sale to be able to do a consultative sale. Once you understand what the use cases are, then you say, all right, I know what I want to do with this. I know what my user's intended outcome is. Remember, you have to know what their intent is. And now that'll tell me several things. One, what data sources do I need to connect to agentic AI to fulfill those particular intentions? And two, what value added in the data can I bring to essentially now create the insights that AI is capable of doing and delivering that to the user? So remember, one of the things that's changed in the world is 10 years ago when I've been doing data and machine learning AI for a while now, And one of the things that I would hear 10 years ago is we have all this data, but it's in all kinds of various formats and we don't know how to normalize the data. That was a huge problem because organizations had difficulty turning their data into machine readable information, right? So I would argue a lot of people, insurance companies were classic. They say, oh, we have all this data. We have all these claim forms. And I said, that's not data. That's what forms that in. Well, it's a PDF. Sometimes they're photographs. Sometimes they're form fills. And I said, well, but those are all different sources of information. None of that's data yet because except for the stuff that's automated form fills, none of that's really machine readable. So how do you convert that to something machine readable? That's a problem. We don't have that problem anymore because what you can do now is dump everything you have into one data lake. And instead of having to create organization around it, structure, taxonomy, ontology, the AI does it for you. So there's a failure in actually our human abilities to catalog data because often data sits in multiple categories or it's not clear what category it sits in. So we end up misclassifying data all the time, which means it's not accessible to the right person at the right time. By not having to categorize and letting the agentic agent search and say, I know this is what they're looking for. Now you've made that experience a seamless one and you don't have to categorize the data. So the data requirement that used to be a heavy, heavy lift for most organizations is a non-example anymore. Think now about, instead of how do I take my data and monetize it, say, what is it my customers really would value and need and pay me money for, and then go look for the data that powers that intent.
Amazing. Thank you. We have a great question from Mateus who asks, can you give a real world example of an agentic AI architecture in animal health and how does it differ from current systems? And then as a follow-up, what are the biggest challenges organizations face when moving from traditional dashboards to AI driven?
Yeah. Let me give you a specific example. And by the way, there are many of them. And Mateus, I'm happy to talk to you offline to talk through how that might work in your particular organization. But a classic one would be take veterinary care for a second. With something we know a whole lot about is where we started our lives. So supporting large veterinary aggregators. So right now, their business is a transactional business. It's an injury and illness business. Somebody sees a symptom presentation. They got to take their animal, their pet, to a veterinarian. And the biggest question they have is, do I need to? Should I? Is that important? Is this a medical issue? Is it serious? As pet parents, we go through that agony, right? So we make some decision. If you're insured, you likely go because you say, well, that's why I have insurance. And you go. And we all know this, that 70% of the time you go, you didn't have to go. Why? Because it's not necessarily a medical issue. It's a behavioral issue. It's an environmental issue. It's a stress issue. It's something that's not necessarily medical. So the standard outcome for pet parents, and we know this, millions of conversations we've heard with pet parents, and they all talk about this, is I took my pet to the vet. They did all these tests. They ruled out a bunch of stuff. It took me a day, stressed myself out, took time off from work, stressed my pet out. In the U.S., the average visit, if nothing is wrong, is something between $600 and $800. I spent $800, and they told me that nothing was wrong. Think about that from a consumer point of view. That's a terrible experience. That's a terrible experience, right? So, and what VERA helps them do is triage. So, veterinary clinics put VERA in front of their customers, triage. So, VERA says, no, this isn't medical. This is probably this, based on the conversation we had. You can wait and see, look for these things. And if these things occur, then come in. If not, then you're fine. And if you're a veterinary practice, you don't necessarily want to clog up your highly in demand, highly overutilized space and people. You want to be able to bring to the hospital things that create the most value, revenue, margins, and profits. But at the same time, support and service those customers of yours that are now, that don't need to come in, but would value the help. So let's take an animal now to answer the question about how this is used. So let's take an animal now diagnosed with diabetes. That's the management of diabetes for a pet parent is not a one-time deal. It's a continuous thing. You're going to have to do management for the rest of your life, for the rest of the pet's life. That's nutrition, that's pharmacological intervention, that's exercise, right? And behavior, environment, all kinds of other stuff. So what these practices now do is they create a subscription-based model where they say, pay us $10 a month and we'll put you on a wellness-based program for your dog with diabetes. And we'll customize the program to your particular animal. We'll get you to take blood work. You report that into the app or talk to Vera about that. And she'll customize and manage the program and recommend change in food, change in exercise regimen, change in the application of insulin, whatever that is. So there's an example of taking a transaction model, visit, come, bring the pet in every once and again, to a subscription-based model where the client's now paying you every month to manage, help you manage this condition using this AI-based tool. That's a major shift in the way they deliver service and creates a whole new revenue stream for them.
That's a great example. I love the example of impact on the animal, but also potential revenue streams as well. That's really great. Yeah. We have quite a few questions around security, which I will pick one. With so many AI systems now popping up, what are the main features and security systems we should be evaluating when selecting an AI system for our company?
I think the key is that you really get them to show you their security compliance. All companies like us have security and compliance metrics that we share. We do internal testing. We have various certifications. Like the key one would be the acronym SOC 2 compliance. So any company that is in the AI business that is SOC 2 compliant means that they've gone through the rigor of having their AI systems tested from against malware and outside hacking. Now, again, no system's foolproof. We all know that, but at least companies that are SOC 2 compliant have lived up to the highest standards of how AI should be deployed. So ask them for their credentials, security credentials, what kind of continuous testing they have against their systems. We've engaged a couple of firms. We have continuous what's called penetration testing. We have people who are constantly hacking people who we pay to do this, professional hackers to hack our systems to make sure that we're unhackable as best as that can be done. And just so you all know, one of the things that's happening on the cybersecurity side is they are some of the first to engage these agentic AI agents to help prevent and detect security breaches. So one real successful area of AI will be in cybersecurity. So those of us who work in AI will know that. So we connect with all those companies who know how to use AI to protect our systems from bad actors. So make sure you understand what their security posture is and see what their certifications and compliance policy is like.
That's great. Thank you, Cal. One of the other biggest challenges with data and using AI is the quality of data as well. And we've got a great question from Rick, who asks, what are your concerns with regards to offering up veterinary or medical information? The pet owner may not always provide ideal information or accurate observations.
Very good question. And by the way, if you talk to veterinarians in the physical practice, the same thing, they tell you the same thing's true, right? They don't always get the right information. And some of that is pet parents don't know what the right information is. And also sometimes they may not want to disclose the right information. So, one of the reasons people use a virtual care service is they have a pet that has ingested some of their marijuana. Now, they don't want to go to the veterinarian and have to expose that. So they use a virtual service to talk to somebody to say, my dog ate one of my joints here. What do I do? Is this critical? Do I need to take it in? Is it going to die? What? So we get those questions a lot, right? So I think one of the things that we're starting to see is that the quality of data drives everything. So what we aspire to do is make sure that we curate and qualify all the data as it goes in. Because, it's the classic example of crap in and crap out, right? So I think a lot of these systems fail because there is no discipline or hygiene associated with the curation of data as it goes in and the continuous curation of the data as it moves through the system and through production. So one of the things that make us different is we have whole teams of people, both technicians, data people, AI people, and veterinarians who are constantly reviewing, and we have dashboards behind the scenes where we're able to see the performance of all of these agents that we create and deploy throughout our partner network, so we can tell when they're not performing well. Also, our partners and we have teams that are either through continuous or specified tests are on a routine schedule testing their particular agents. So it's all about the quality of the data goes in and the maintenance of the integrity of that data in the production environment. So that's how we do all that. So it's critical that you really have people that understand data and understand the implementation of data through AI, and that the data management process and curation process is ongoing, continuous, and rigorous. That's what's important. Not a one and done thing.
Great, thanks, Cal. I think we have time for one more question, but I wanted to assure everyone that we've received all the questions and we will pass them on to Cal after, who can follow up directly. But this one's from Jose and asks, is there a way to avoid hallucination of AI? Is it always related to data, quality itself, or the AI?
It's always related to, I would say, while it happens, it's rare that it's about the technology. It's almost always about the data. So as I said earlier, one of the biggest problems is if your data source is the internet at large, there's actually too much data in there. The data is really conflicting, and that sets up the greatest likelihood for hallucinations, where when it doesn't have a true source of truth, then it makes up an answer. That's the hallucination. So I think the key is, the key words here are source of truth. The data you have, the data sets you have more than one, probably the data sets that you have, you really need to know that that is the source of truth. And your agent needs to always fall back on that source of truth. The other thing with agentic that can be done is you can actually triangulate answers. So one of the things that Vera is doing behind the scenes, and again, it depends on how we set up your agent, is she draws from the database that we created, our partners we create for that particular silo. But at the same time, we ask Vera in the background to go out and say, can you confirm this data from 2 publicly available sources? So I want to make sure that this is the right data. And you can figure that any way you want. So with agentic AI, you can ask the system itself to find other sources of data that validate the answer that she's about to give. Does that make sense? So now you're not just, it's much like the press. There's a press rule that used to be, we want to make sure we don't say anything as the New York Times unless we have 2 confirmed independent sources that's saying the same thing. Well, that's what agentic AI can do in the background. You can give it data sources to go toward and say, look at these sources, compare your answer with these. Is this likely the right answer based on the comparatives that you've done out in the marketplace? That's what a lot of people are doing now, that really ensures the quality of the data that's in there. So that does, although we'll never eliminate hallucinations, we certainly can minimize them. And by the way, I would argue that the intelligent agents will always be better than humans, because the humans aren't perfect either. We give less than perfect answers when we're tired, when we're really busy, when we're really stressed, because we can't think of everything, and we don't have infinite memories like these machines do. That's a critical thing to think about. So I get asked all the time, is Vera perfect? The answer is absolutely not. But you name me a veterinarian that is too.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody is.
That's a great closing message. Thank you, Cal. I'm afraid we are at time there, but I want to say thank you for all of your insights and to our audience participation as well.
It was a real pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Feel free to book a time with me. Happy to work through some topics with you individually. Thanks a lot.